Hello YouTube! My name is rhianaB and welcome back to my review series covering Survivor Season 41. Wow, this episode was definitely a roller coaster. So many things have happened in the span of this episode that when I was watching this with my mom and our neighbors, it was one of the few times where we were pretty silent. We were so focused on what was happening in front of us that it was truly, really the time where you had to focus. And also, I felt extremely tense, especially during the tribal council. I had absolutely no idea what exactly was going to happen. And there was a lot of great twists and turns in this episode, which I'm all for having some fun during a Survivor episode. So wow, we got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. But before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe and get notified to my videos so you will not miss my future Survivor 41 episodes, as well as checking out my other Survivor reviews and checking out any of my other videos I've done on my channel. I've done all sorts of crazy videos for anyone to enjoy, so please do so. I would really appreciate it. Alright, so now getting into the episode. We obviously have the three remaining UP members being Jeannie, Ricard, and Shan. All of them are now in a very interesting situation. I don't think we've seen a final three tribe in quite some time. It's very rare in more modern era of Survivor for there to have a tribe of this few people. So this is going to make the game extremely interesting for them. Jeannie decides to go out and try to find Brad's old Beware advantage, which was the three-way idol. Lo and behold, she does find it, but she tells Shan and Ricard about it as well. Collectively as a group, although it was led by Shan, that they don't open the Beware advantage, so they don't lose anybody's votes, and since they already know what it is, they can kind of plan around how to make it work. So, they make it so no one opens it. However, even though Shan was the one pushing for them not to open it, more so that was for Jeannie to not get her hands on the advantage. But there is that sneaky little survivor instinct in Shan that's telling her to go ahead and open up the advantage. Now, she does let Ricard in on the plan, and they decide to put in a bracelet to kind of act as a fake idol. And I guess in the way, just in case if Jeannie does open it without their permission, I don't know. The whole fake idol thing was a little strange to me because why even bother? But Shan eventually is the one who ends up taking it, so she is the one who loses her vote, and because of that, she decides to give the extra vote she got from JD in the last episode and give it to Ricard just in case. This is eventually going to lead to a big discussion at the very end of the episode, but that is for the future. And for now, you will also come up with this really complex idea to go ahead and start saying the lines that are part of the three-way idol advantage and see if anyone on Luvu has actually found it. Because as of yet, we have not heard anything from Luvu as far as the idol is concerned. And speaking of Luvu, the idol is now coming into play a little bit, as well as the age-old fear of Survivor, the all-female alliance. It's so cliche at this point to keep talking about being wary of a Black Widow Brigade number 2. It's so taboo at this point. I'm so done with the whole fear of women in the game. Why can't we have just as much of a fear of men in the game since they've been the one winning a lot of the more modern seasons? But I digress. So Sydney talked really quickly about her love of the water and how she also loves the praise of being the provider of the group, which is kind of yada yada here. The more important thing we need to talk about is Deshawn and Danny are still kind of talking about, do we want to throw the challenge to get some of these girls off of the tribe? Now, it's interesting because that was such a big part of last episode. This one, not so much. Deshawn does bring it up, and I think he still kind of wants it to happen, but maybe at the same time, Danny and Deshawn, to some degree, also think that them continuing to win challenges can also be beneficial to them, because that way they can still keep their numbers of the men, and that does include Nasir. Nasir this episode had such a glow up. I was so shocked with Nasir this episode. He didn't get as much screen time, to be fair, but the screen time he got, like, it was a shock to my system. I cannot begin to tell you, but I'll try my best. So Nasir does go ahead and talk to Deshawn and Danny, and basically Danny's perspective is that he needs to work with Nasir to help with his own game. Whereas Nasir, I think he's kind of more open. I get the vibe that he's somebody who's kind of going to go with the flow. He's not going to stick to any one group of person, or at least that's kind of how it's been working for him since people have gone so back and forth with Nasir on Luvu. Sydney's kind of gone back and forth. Danny's kind of gone back and forth. So he's a very interesting character. So I'm extremely excited to see where he goes after this episode because I think he's probably going to be the main free agent of the season, which will be very interesting to see. And also we do get a little bit of a sneak peek at Yasa, which is good because we didn't get much of them from last episode. But at Yasa, Evie is trying to continue strengthening her bond with Xander because at this point, Xander thinks that his only ally is Evie, which makes sense because he was the one who told her and Voce about all of his advantages. And though also Evie told Liana and Tiffany about it as well. But while Evie and Xander are talking, Liana and Tiffany at camp decide to go through Xander's bag to see if he's found any real advantages. Because they already knew that he had some sort of an advantage, but I guess this was just making sure that they 100% knew about it, which, hey, fair. And they do end up finding that he has an extra vote plus the Beware 3-way idol. And this whole thing about this is so weird to me. Like, first off, entirely stupid that Xander did not hide any of his advantages and just kept them in his bag and didn't take his bag with him. That is extremely dumb on Xander's part. And then my mom and our neighbors, they were talking about how it's almost unfair to go through people's bags because that's personal property. And I get that, but in the game of Survivor, it does make sense. Obviously, they can't take anything. I know that the producers would not allow them to steal their property without their consent, but you know what? If you're going to look through someone's bag and if they left it around, that's going to be on the player, not on the producers. So for me, it's fair game to look through people's stuff in the game of Survivor. That's just my own opinion. And then the other weird move is that Xander decides to talk to Tiffany, I guess because he thinks that he can use her in the future. I don't know if he is that. Nothing against Xander. I think he is a smart individual, but I don't know if he's smart enough to really maneuver around someone like Tiffany, who is very erratic at the best of times. But it was so funny to watch the two of them talk because obviously Tiffany knows about Xander's advantage, so she is making all of these faces behind Xander's back when he's not looking, and it is pretty funny because my whole thought was, if I were in her shoes, I would probably do the exact same thing where, yeah, I'm nodding my head being like, yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you. And then, like, when he's not looking, I'm being like, you know, I just found it so funny. And I don't know, Tiffany is getting more and more interesting as the game goes on, and that's why I'm still sticking to my gut that there is more to Tiffany in this season than maybe some people would let on, but we still have quite a bit of game left to play. Need we forget, we are only on day 10 on episode 5 of Survivor 41. Now we get to the immunity challenge. So the game within a game was featured in the immunity challenge, and it was learning curve, which was pretty simplistic this episode. Also, sorry that I didn't talk about the game within a game in my last double feature reviews. I just cut them out for the sake of time, but you probably already knew what they were to begin with, so I'm not going to cover them here, but today I brought it up, so I got that under my belt. Right at the beginning of the challenge, we do have a small conversation where Ricard starts to lead with the whole broccolis and small trees line, and then does a great delivery to Xander so he can give his butterflies are dead relatives, and then we're kind of left after the two of them talk. or their groups talk, that's it. That Luvu still have not found any trace of the idol, which I was getting furious about, because how the hell has no one looked for the idol, especially if some people are concerned about new alliances forming? It just boggled my mind. However, we didn't need to worry about that, because out of freaking nowhere comes Nasir with "I'm just as confused as a goat on AstroTurf."
I am as confused as a goat on AstroTurf.
The minute that I heard that, my mind just went. I was shocked. That was such a great editing choice by the editors of Survivor. That was incredible. I did not expect that at all. Though when I did look back on it, I'm like, that does make sense that he found the idol, because he was acting pretty confident around Deshawn and Danny about not throwing the challenge and to continue targeting Erica. It made so much sense, and it was just such an amazing revelation. I would have to argue that's one of my favorite, shock moments. Probably in all of Survivor, if not in the modern era. Literally, I was so taken aback by what I just heard. I was just completely aghast. I didn't know what to react. But Nasir did say the line, and that means that all of the idols are active, which means Xander, Shan, and Nasir have the idol, as well as they all have their votes back, which is definitely important for Shan and important for Xander, who has had his vote taken away from him the longest. So that's going to make things pretty interesting moving forward. And really quickly, I do have to talk about Nasir's cute little mention to his daughter, who was doing these kind of things at home, where she would make little idols for Nasir to find around their house. First off, that is a great idea for anyone who wants to train to be on Survivor. That's actually really smart, and also it's just really adorable. And it's even more precious that it ended up paying off, because Nasir was able to find the advantage, and now he has an idol in his pocket. So good for Nasir. This was a shining moment for Nasir, and this is the episode that made me really pay attention to him. And now I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table. But now back to the challenge. A pretty close race, and so many back and forths with those slingshots and the targets. But sadly, Yua does not have the luck on their side, because Yasa and Luvu win the challenge, and that means that a tribe of 3 will be brought down to 2. Also, as the first winning tribe, Yasa got a really large tarp and rope, and they also had the opportunity to give 2 players a chance to have a little talk in the game. We have the summit coming back again, and this time it will be Shan and Liana. So they will both go to the summit while the others will go back to their camps. And interestingly enough, Ricard and Jeannie are the only ones at Yua to talk strategy for the tribal council that night. And woo boy, this next part of the episode is going to get very intense, so bear with me here. At the summit, we do see that Shan and Liana are bonding very, very well. These are young women of color who have had their own ups and downs as far as their life is concerned. In particular with Shan, holy hell, she has had quite the upbringing. Talking about her struggled relationship with her mother, her being in foster care, her being involved in a gang before she came into being a person of God and becoming a pastor. Her story is so interesting. And the fact that she is such a lively person, I think is a testament to the character that she is. And that's why I think a lot of us really love Shan. You really relate to her, even though she's been through some things that none of us have probably ever experienced in our lives, at least not to this extent. She's absolutely fantastic, and having this background adds more to her character. Although a thought did pass my mind that this is definitely the point where this might be a bad sign that she might be going home, because as we've seen, a lot of people that get those in-depth looks into their character have not lasted pretty far in the game yet. So I think that's more of a wait and see thing, but it's definitely food for thought. because of this bonding experience with Shan and Liana, they do decide that Shan is going to protect her vote and that Liana will risk her vote, which means Liana will get an advantage in the game. Now, when I first heard that, I was thinking automatically, okay, this is going to be another extra vote. Oh boy, was I wrong though, because this advantage, oh boy, it's a little controversial. It's a bit of a doozy. So the name of this advantage, it is called the Knowledge of Power. What this advantage does, it gives a player the chance to ask one player, one time only, if they have either an idol or an advantage in the game. They have to ask this at a tribal council, and the person that is being asked the question, they have to tell the truth. They have to answer truthfully to the person asking the question. If the player asking the question does get a positive response, if the person that they're asking says yes, they have to give their idol / advantage to that player. And obviously it's pretty self-explanatory. If they say no, then they don't get nothing and the advantage becomes useless. Holy crap, that is a big wow. Literally, I heard that and I'm like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this. Honestly, part of this seems a little unfair, but I kind of expect that to happen because that has happened in the past where the game has not been fair to players. But I can't help but think that this is immediately going to be a huge problem for Xander, because there's no way he can combat this. Unless he did this whole thing where maybe he gave his advantages to Evie, possibly for safekeeping, kind of similar to how you has been doing that a lot with the extra vote. Maybe in the case that would be fine, but again, that's giving away your advantages to other players and you don't have the guarantee to get them back. I don't know. I do see it as being a little unfair, but I think depending on how Liana uses it, that could change my opinion on the matter. But as of right now, I think me and a lot of fans right now are being like, I don't know if this is a thing that should be happening, but it's in the game now, so we'll have to live with it and see what happens. Now, to go to our main focus of the episode. Let's go back to Yua. Obviously, there's only 3 people on the tribe. At this point right now, Shan is not there, so it is just rhianaB and Genie talking about what they're gonna do. Obviously, they can't say, I'm gonna give up. None of these people want to quit the game. None of them want to stop playing. So they do have to, conspire with each other to go against the person that's not there or not in the conversation. I don't think I've ever seen a final 3 be this complicated. And obviously it's not the final 3, but it is a final 3 nonetheless, and it is entirely fascinating to see how this is going to go. The first thing I think of as a reference is obviously in Palau when we had Oolong down to their 3 members left, and then the same thing in the Philippines with Matt Singh. It's exactly like those situations, but I would say this is definitely the most complex final 3 vote that we have seen yet in this sort of circumstance. You have Genie wanting to target rhianaB. rhianaB is throwing out Shan's name, but really is wanting to throw out Genie out of the game. Shan comes back and wants to have her piece. And then we get to this really convoluted argument between rhianaB and Shan about the extra vote. Basically, it's the sense of rhianaB wants to have some power in the game, so he wants to keep on to the extra vote that Shan gave to him. Obviously, Shan doesn't want him to keep it because, as she is kind of right, that it is hers. She is the one who earned it from JD. However, if we've learned anything about giving people advantages, they don't work out that often, so I don't know why Shan eventually even gave that extra vote to him in the first place, but here we are, and rhianaB wants to keep the extra vote since now Shan has the idol, and he even throws out to her, if you don't trust me tonight, go ahead and play your idol, do it. And Shan obviously doesn't want to do that because she wants to save it for the merge to help with her alliance, or better yet, herself. It just got very intense, and I'm just sitting there being like, what the hell has all of this just come to? Like, Is this really relevant? Is this going to divide Ricard and Shan for good? I'm gonna say no, but it's not helping them. I think they're still gonna work together for now, but definitely there is a crack. There is a crack in that alliance, and time will tell if it is going to be glued together or if it's gonna completely fall apart. The other thing to think about here, and one that has come up in past seasons, regardless if it's a final three, it's the whole idea of who is your best option? Do you go with someone who is loyal to you, or do you pick someone who's a fellow strategist who can help you with strategic points throughout the game? I would say that is kind of, in a way, that is such a tough question, because you do want someone on your side who is very loyal to the point that they're going to be so truthful to you. The downside to that is having someone too loyal can backfire on you, because your alliance member could say the wrong thing and then you're screwed. And then you have the other side where it is smart to have someone who can still bounce off ideas off of you. That having a fellow strategist can really help to better each of your games. We've seen it multiple times. You know, I think of Todd and Amanda from China. I think of Suri, Parvati, and Amanda in Micronesia. You think of JT and Steven. There's just so many times where there have been strong strategic duos in the history of the game that it does show that can definitely benefit you. But obviously, because these two are very smart, I think they know that they can't get to the end together, or it's gonna probably be very hard for either one of them to win, because who knows what the jury is gonna say about them being there. So long story short, we get the tribal, we have these backs and forths, and again, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, I have no idea what's gonna happen, because everyone does sound truthful, but obviously someone is lying here. In a tribe of 3, when we're about to vote someone off, someone is being lied to. I was trying so hard to read in between lines and look at body languages, and I'm like, I can't figure out who's lying here. I don't know what's gonna happen. But I will say that Shan did a really great job of probably backing Jeannie away from possibly rolling her dice, because she did mention that she thought about doing that. But Shan did a great job of saying that this is a vote about trust. If you roll your dice, you have lost trust with the rest of the tribe. That's a great threat, and it's actually true. It would lose trust, because that shows you're being individualistic instead of wanting to play around with the group. Now, would have it been beneficial for Jeannie to even do it? I don't think it really would have mattered, but I think it was entirely smart on Shan to say what she said right before the vote about the roll the dice. So another great play by Shan here. We get to the vote, and it is 2-1 for Jeannie. After all of this craziness, we end up with a kind of uneventful vote out, but nonetheless, Jeannie becomes the next person voted out of Survivor 41. And that is it for this episode. I am just so surprised that we have come to this point. We have our final 12. 6 of which are still on one tribe, and the other 6 are a culmination of 2 tribes. And that is why next week is going to be very interesting, because either we are having an early merge, we are having a tribe swap, or we're going to be having some other kind of merge tribe swap twist in the game, because what it sounds like, it's something that's never happened before. Now, I honestly don't know what to make of that. My first thought was it's going to be what they've done before, where they're going to draw new buffs for 2 different tribes. There will be one rando buff in the bag, and one person will be sent to, I would assume, maybe like a summit isle, and then they will wait until one tribe loses another player, and then the person on that summit isle or exile will come back and join that group's tribe. I want to say that's what it is, but from what it sounds like, it's going to be completely different. Now, I have heard rumors that it could be almost like a Thailand effect, where they did like a fake merge. I don't think they would do that, because that did not go over well in Thailand at the time. And also, it became a very unfair outcome for Xi'an, so I don't think they would do that. But other than that, I don't know what else is going to happen here. Unless they just... I don't know. I don't know. It's so hard to... It's hard to kind of guess what's even going to happen in a season like this with all the turns we've already taken, so I don't know. But it will be interesting. We will finally get a shakeup, and I think that's going to really force some people to really play the game hard when they haven't had the opportunity to do so. So that'll be interesting to look forward to next week. And again, really quickly, I'm going to go over Confessional Count, and Shan was the big confessional star this episode with, according to my count, a total of whopping 15 confessionals in this episode. And even the person that came in second was Jeannie, who was the boot of this episode. She got like half less. She only had half of the confessionals that Shan had, which is incredible. And then obviously Ricard was number 3, and then everybody else had, say, 3, 1, or 2 confessionals for the episode. Yet again, nothing from Heather, nothing from Erica. Yeah, I'm shocked that I'm getting the sense that they are going to get purple edits. Maybe more so on Heather than on Erica, because we've at least seen that Erica wants to play, and maybe with next week happening, it might change that. But I don't know. I want to be proven wrong that we're getting purple edits here, but as of right now, Heather is not really of interest to me at all. Erica has potential, and then everybody else has had a decent amount of screen time where I actually have an interest in them. So right now, Heather definitely needs some confessional loving if she's going to get any more respect from me personally. But we still have a little over half of the season to go, so we'll have to wait and see on how that is going to turn out. But that is all I have for this review. Quite a bit we had to talk about. Really, really interesting. This season is just so unpredictable, and it's been such a blast to watch. So I cannot wait until next week when we're going to have some really big changes. But until then, that is it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me comments down below. What did you think of this crazy roller coaster of an episode? I would love to hear your opinions on the advantages, on how Yua is going to be in the future. What do you think the twist is next week? Just let me know any of your comments, because I would love to hear from them. And if you want to see my future videos or videos I've already done, go ahead, hit subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you can be notified when my videos come out. That's all I have for you all today, and until the next video, bye! Mwah!